part 3 of the 21 Ultra Limited saga. I'm not worried about today. I'm just saying it's a level of electrical as Vice Grip Garage digicals that I am just not comfortable with, but it is what it is. So why am I nervous? We're doing the inner fairing swap. Something that's done in like an hour at a rally. If you go and you bring your bike in and go, you know, I want to paint it to match inner fairing, you know, from fairing exchange or whatever. Like 1 hour they swap them suckers out. But that's because that's all they do, all day, every day. Inner fairing, inner fairing, inner fairing. Me, I don't like it. I don't like the idea of all the plugs and the wires and the cables. And now I do ape hangers. I did those ape hangers with internal wiring, and I've done a million Softails. Don't do dresser stuff that often. These, no problem. I'd be happy to have done those on my Springer. They were already on there when I bought it, but just not a fan of the concept. Anyway, I got no choice because I've got a beautiful red inner fairing that matches my rear end. If you don't know what this is my 2021 Ultra Limited. I'm doing a color swap, and I'm doing it all with Advanblack parts, with the exception of the things that they don't provide. So I have their Dominator rear fender, their stretch bags, their side covers, the tank covers that are stretched, their inner fairing, and their front fender. I'm having to have the lowers painted, which normally you can get lowers from them, but these have radiators in them because it's an Ultra, so I had to go outside. And then my front fairing cap that's, you know, not on the bike. So I'm having to have those painted. Other than that, whole body's going to be Advan. Gonna do a lot of cool stuff. I've already done part 1 was tearing the rear end down. Part 2 is installing the new one. Part 3, I had said was going to be the tank, but I've decided what I want to do is I want to do the inner fairing now, because God forbid I have an issue with reassembly and it makes contact with the tank. At least it's a tank that's going to be covered up. That's my rationale. So what are we going to do today? Take that sumbitch off. All right, so front fairing's already off. Some of this I've kind of already done. And if you want to watch an actual intelligent individual do this, then Sickbaggers, Steve of Sickbaggers, he's done this before. And that's what I'm using as my basis. So when I start to cry and get upset and whine, I'm going to just watch his video a bunch of times too. So there's a recommendation for you. In short, this is what I have gathered. Oh, side note, we're putting Dakota, did I already say this? We're putting Dakota digital gauges in this as well while it's out, because you already got it out, so do it then. What I gathered from Steve, which it was really great to hear this, is that all the plugs in here are unique. Meaning you really, other than the turn signals, and those are on either side, so you're not going to screw that up. There isn't like a plug in here that can accidentally go in the wrong place. They're all unique connectors. You can't mix them up, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So what he said in his video was, you can take the time to like tape and this to this and that to that. But he's like, just unplug the sumbitches. Like, unplug everything until you've got everything disconnected from the bike. And I know that when I turn the ignition on, nothing happens. So I got just about all that done. I'm going to take one last peek at making sure that there's no plugs hanging. Now, obviously, you got your clutch cable, brake cable, and wiring from the controls and the bars, which are unconnected. Unconnected? Not connected to this job. Those are going to run into the bike separately, so you don't have to worry about that. I've been snipping zip ties for an hour, just like making sure everything's free. But then what we're going to do is essentially take off the turn signals, which are those bolts there. And if you have an Ultra, then it's the bracket for your passing lamps. You're going to take out that. Was it a Torx or an Allen? I can't see from here because I'm too blind. I'm going to take those off on either side. That way this piece will come off. You don't have to take the ignition out anymore on the new bikes. This is a 21 and going back to 19? I don't know. Somebody comment down below. You don't have to take the ignition out. You can see that it's open back here. So this just drops away. You unplug the switches, and then this whole assembly will come away and just swap it over and put it back on. So that's easier, at least. You're not fiddling with the whole tumbler in there and potentially cause a problem for yourself where you don't get that lined up right. I'm happy about that already. Take this off, and then when these bolts are all off, you know, and out of there, I think there's one under here. I'm not sure. We'll find out in a second. It's going to come away. This is not, again, a how-to video because I am alone. I only have 2 hands, and I can't sit there and go, next step is to take the T24. I can't do that stuff. So, sorry. So then what we're going to do is take this inside my house and swap everything over slowly onto the new inner fairing and then bring her back out here and button her up and pray to God that when I hit the ignition, everything lights up. It's my philosophy in life. So, we'll be back. Hey look, a Road King with no headlight. Actually, okay, so just start unplugging. Just like I said before, just unplug everything. You get a mess hanging down, yes, but unplug everything. The only 2 snags I had, I unplugged everything that was obvious that I could see, and then you take out your turn signal screws, which is what... I'm being invaded, hang on. All right, now that the freaking deuce and a half has rolled down the road, trash truck, man. They do one side and they leave and they come back and they do the other side. They do, look, I drive a diesel as God intended, but put a muffler on that sumbitch. Anyway, back on topic. The fairing is now off. And I gotta tell you, the weight off my chest already, because I've never taken a bat wing off. Not all the way off. And, it sucks, don't get me wrong. It's a lot of wires. You see, when I'm done with this, I gotta figure out where all these went. But like Steve was saying in his video, you can't get them mixed up. They can only go to one place. So just make sure your plugs are out and you can see them, you know, so that when you're working on it, putting it back together, you don't miss one. Like, I might put some like bright blue tape on them just so I know all the ones I got. You know what I'm saying? But my last one, as I was taking it off, you just take, the turn signal bolts are basically holding the fairing on. Yeah, right. I thought there'd be a little more action under there. It's these 4 are holding that sucker on, basically. You take those out, she lays forward and lifts off. The only snags I had, it's kind of funny, were my lightning cable for my phone. I forgot the USB was plugged in there. And then this guy, I had missed, and so I had to unplug that. But other than that, and that was just, you know, grab it one hand, hold it left. And so I'm shocked at how uneventful that was. Famous last words. So now what we're going to do is best way to do this is take this whole thing in the house and then, you know, one by one from the back side, switch it over to the new inner, get her all buttoned up that way, and then bring it back out, marry it up, rotate it on, and start praying that I get all the plugs. So... oh, we'll do the Dakota Digitals, you know, installs while we do that. One last thing I got to figure out, which we'll do this together. The inner fairing, of course, is, you know, OEM shape, no weirdness, nice brass ferrules in the plastic, so it'll go together nicely. Is this door doesn't seem to, maybe you just glue the new one on, because I've got a new one in there, but it's just a door. So I got to figure that out. It may be one of those things where you're actually installing that over that one. I don't know. You know, that's one thing we'll just figure out as we're doing, because there might even be directions in there, but you're not going to get me to look. Another thing I realized a long time ago, my buddy from Advan sent me these forever ago, and they're their honeycomb speaker grills, which these are like CNC aluminum. These are cool. I've had them on a shelf forever. So, I mean, those aren't bad looking, but that's better. So we'll swap those out too while we're doing, could be fun. Too bad I don't have them for the lowers. Anyway, so let's get inside and get to it. Sit rep. It's frustrating. It's not terrible. You know, you'll live. Essentially, I'm not gonna be able to do, like I said, like a how-to in this because there's just 5 billion little bolts. One plus side, I did install the cigarette lighter / power port. That's exciting. You just unscrew the back and push it through if you don't know. What I'm doing right now is fighting with figuring out what nut and bolt holds what where. And if you just want to look for a second, yeah, there's a bunch of them. So I just took all the screws out from the back of the speaker pod, that guy there, and then the sides here, and that came loose. So now I got the speaker pod over there. Now I'm going to take this sort of backing ring off so that I can install the cool speaker grills that I left out in the garage and got to go get into there. And then I think it's working outward in, if that makes sense. Feels like that's what I end up having to do. Take the speaker pods off, and then this like central frame, and so I'm just got to figure it out. I'm a bull in a china shop. That's my personality. That's the way I do things. I do exhaust and intakes and bars, and I hate the wiring part of the bars. So if you're a meticulous, calm, cool, collected kind of dude, this is going to be nothing. If you're a mess like I am, I'm sure I'll get it done, but it's just going to be challenging. That's the way it is. So keep cracking. My first disappointment of what I'm sure will be many. These are really cool. I like the way they look. I had put them into the inner fairing to see what they look like, and they look really nice against the red paint, but I can't use them with my Rockford Fosgate stereo. I'll show you why. The Rockford Fosgate has that sort of cross beam. It's because it's a three-way speaker. That beam hits these speaker grills. So, can't use them, but I bet the old man can. So when he goes to a gloss inner fairing, he can pop those in his trike. So that's where those will go now. But anyway, just thought I would provide that little update. Not a big deal, but because the Rockford Fosgate ones are cool. They have the, you know, the silver bar and shield and all that stuff on them. But I really liked those CNC honeycomb speaker grills. Anyway, cracking on. So shockingly, something that wasn't too bad was the stereo comes out one big giant cluster like that. So it's not as bad as it looks. So when you see like the support bracket and the stereo and the wiring harness and all that stuff, if you take all the bolts out to remove the speaker pods, which I'll show you real quick, it's essentially 3 Allens, 3 big Allens. You don't take the little ones out. You don't take those out. You take the big ones out of there, 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 and there. And then you take these 3 out of here and these 2 out of there, right? From the inside. Then these pods will come off. Once these are off, it's only a few. Where were they? There's only a few that attach it to the actual fairing itself. And when I figure that out, I'll do another video. But yeah, not another video, another segment here. But yeah, that whole assembly comes out in one fell swoop. So it's fiddly and it's intimidating, but it's not that bad. One thing I did figure out is the door, the garage door on the Batwing, for lack of a better word, where your phone goes. This guy. You pop off the old one, exposing sort of a raw black plastic. So that door just is kind of snapped on to the actual door itself, and now I've lost it. But you just kind of work your way around the edges and the whole painted door pops off. The new one doesn't snap on. The new one you actually epoxy on, which I gotta be better actually. I'm just gonna put some epoxy in the backside of it. But I'm gonna do that once it's all reassembled. That way I can line it up better, you know? So keep cracking, but I'm feeling good in a way. Yeah. All right, trying to isolate what screws hold what. You got basically 3. Yeah. Torx T, I think they're 25s actually, not 27s, which, you know, you never know with Harley. It's going to be one of the two. Or 20. Can't read that. I think it's T20 actually. You got 3 holding the whole stereo frame, you know, assembly in here. You got this one hidden right there. And then you got the back side of the big gauges. This one and this one. Those 3, from what I can tell, are pretty much holding the entire stereo and frame assembly on the inner fairing. So you're gonna wanna plug everything, back of the gauge, all that stuff. When you take those 3 out, it pretty much lifts right off the back of the inner fairing. So what do I have so far? I've got my speaker grills swapped over. I can't use the cool ones, of course, because of the Rockford Fosgate stereo, but it is what it is. Transfer those over. Gauges are screwed in. There's a different plug, so I have to check the wiring kit. I'm not going to do a Dakota Digital install video. I'm not, because the instructions are pretty good. As a matter of fact, I was kind of using them as reference as I was putting this together, because a couple of places where I'm like, well, was that the right screw? Was it a different, you know, like, and it's in here actually, you know. So, because you're doing most of this to change these gauges out. You're not taking the fairing off. You don't have to do that. From what I can see, if you essentially take off the vent, which is here, which is only 3 Torx screws, and take off this guy here, which holds the main cluster, and then those 2 that I showed you that hold this, it'll kind of move away enough to where you can get the other two out. So believe it or not that scary of an install. I think that it's probably, if you know what you're doing, an hour to change the gauges. Front cap comes off, the vent comes out, and then you're looking at 3 T20s on each smaller gauge, and then 3 T20s holding the big gauge in. But you just know that these two are going to have to be undone so you can get to the one down there on the bottom of the smaller gauge. But not that bad of an install. And then I'm going to check the wiring, a whole bunch of stuff. Got an oil temp sensor, which I thought this already had, but maybe it needs a different one. I don't know. So we're going to check all that, but we'll get her done. And I'll do a separate video just on the gauges, probably like you can change the colors and all kinds of stuff. But that'll be more on how cool they are to have, not installing them, because I am not smart enough to do an install video on the gauges. But the instructions look right on, so go for it. I'm tired, and all I've done is some bolts and screws. So I'm happy to say that the inner fairing is finished. At least the transfer is finished. No issues, no stripped screws, and I don't have a single extra screw or bolt, so that's a great sign. It means I used them all. I was afraid I was going to actually be short one. There's a lot of little screws and stuff, but every single bolt and screw was used, which for me is yeah, right there. So let's take a peek real quick. There should be on the floor, and there's the old one laying there. Old man monkey's going to get that one. Don't ask for it. He's going to get it. I'm sure he's going to want it for his trike, because his trike is flat black and the bike is black. So there you go, perfect. So I got to take this out and mount it up. I'm not going to be able to really show you that because I don't have enough hands. But it basically, it's the opposite. I'm going to go in and rock forward and then bolt up to the turn signal mounts. Pretty much holds it on, and then we'll just start plugging stuff in and pray. Interesting thing about these Dakota Digital gauges, and we'll show a little bit of setup stuff, and we'll go through that again in a later video. But it only uses the center plug. The two outer gauges have their own plug, and it doesn't use the stockers. It actually has its own system in there. So the center plug, I believe, is the ECM interface, and then these gauges have their own like little computers inside them. So the two outer gauges plug into the center gauge, and then that's it. And then you have the optional oil temperature gauge sensor. It's in here, which replaces your drain plug. That's how that works, and you run that wire up, which you can do later. But what I'm going to do, the option is to either run either the oil temp as a meat reading, or if you don't want to run that plug, then you can run the cylinder head temp reading. To me, for some reason, that's more interesting. So I'm going to run the cylinder temp thing, not the oil. But let's take this out and mount it up. Hey, Mrs. Springer.
Oh, I don't have any makeup on or anything. Jesus, what are you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
It's gonna happen. Just make peace with it.
Oy.
So, took the Springer for a spin. Ooh, YouTube music. Doo-doo-doo. So, you happy?
Oh, I'm ecstatic. She and I could.
Okay, let's stop talking about you. Yeah. Back to me. So, so I don't. It's like ape hangers. I don't ever want to do that again. I'll show you in a minute, but it's fiddly and nerve-wracking, and there's a billion little screws. And yes, it can be done. You can do it. I'm just saying, start on a Saturday morning, give you all weekend, take your time, have someone sitting there drinking beer so they can help you, because mating her back up on the bike is not fun. It's because you're afraid you're gonna scratch something, and you're kind of freaking bull moosing that thing. So essentially what you're doing when you put her back on is, inside here is the metal bracing. You're kind of going above the top mounting hole, sliding down and then catching the bottom one and sliding. But it's not that it's not that much finesse to it. It's more of a son of a bitch, you know. But it'll get on there and then hook all your wires back up. Looks phenomenal. The grand reveal of the red inner fairing. Pow! Yes, I still got to put the door on, but that's epoxy, and I'll deal with that later. And it's not cleaned up or anything. But yeah, the upper and lower inner fairing, dirty and covered in fingerprints, but mounted up. Looks good. I'm happy with it. Now, these Dakota Digital gauges, they're cool. It's like a TFT screen, so there's like large digital readouts, but in these squares, it's like tiny laptop screens. You know what I mean? Like, what do they call it? A TFT? Like it's there. I'll just show you. It says oil temp open because I haven't plugged in the sensor yet. But there is your fuel gauge, right? And RPM over here, as well as up there. So like a sweeping kind of bar and a big number. Speedometer is digital. You can change all this stuff. There's even an app. This is all Bluetooth. So you can go and change what gauges you want. You can also do it via the menu. If you hold in the trigger, when you turn on the ignition, it puts it in setup mode. And you can hear I can cycle through all this stuff. So yeah, got it. Stop. There we go. Oh, hold it clear. There we go. And pow. So I know why it's doing that. I don't have it plugged in right now. So you've got, you know, air temp right now is 82 degrees. Sorry. What gear I'm in, what time it is, trip meter, trip timer, the high mile per hour, so the Mrs. Monkey can never ride this again. The 0 to 60 time, yeah, it'll do that. You can actually do a 0 to 60 run. The quarter-mile time this thing will do. And then, is that everything? And then back to the air. So, and then, you know, like I said, tack over there, trip over there, You're going to change this to like the head temp like it is right now, or you can make it oil temp, which I'm sure I will once I get that plugged in. You can make these say pretty much whatever you want. You can make this be your percentage of fuel remaining by, it actually shows like, you know, 30%, you know, that kind of thing. So it actually shows what's left. It does distance to empty. I haven't figured that out yet. It does all that stuff. But trash control. Oh, it's because I haven't started the bike yet. So, oh, I just turned on rain mode. And look at that. It has the little icon for rain. Rain mode, not rainbows.
Oh, they don't have a rainbow mode?
You want a rainbow mode? Going to South Beach?
I'd love to use
Okay. Yeah. Listen. And then you can change the colors. So you can actually go through on the app, maybe on here too, but that'd be way too much work. But on the app, you change what color you want the actual speed to be. So the bike's red, you can make it all red if you want, all that stuff. So they're cool. I'll probably do a video just on these, a shorter one later, but they're in. Putting just these in wouldn't be nearly as bad as this. Just doing the gauges, like I said before, is these two. Those are blindingly bright. Custom Dynamics, the little LEDs are. You take these Torx out here, and then this slides out, and then you've got access to most of the screws except for the ones that are kind of buried down there. So you kind of take these and kind of wiggle, and then you can get them out and change them. So it's not a huge deal to change them on their own. But if you're doing your interfering, I think you're nuts to not switch out the gauges, to be honest, because those are really cool. So let me think. This was part 3? 3 was the interfering. And then the next part I'll do the tank covers and probably those like heat shields and yeah, that kind of thing. And last thing will be the fender. Maybe we'll just do it all. Because it's not, I mean, it's 4 bolts for the front fender and those aren't hard to put on either, or neither of those. So the next one might just be the remaining black parts. And then whenever we get the stuff back from paint, the outer fairing and the lowers, we'll mount that up and we'll dial her in and go for a ride. But can it be done? Yes. If you have patience, absolutely, you can do your own interfering. I'd wait for a rally and go to Fairing Exchange and get this switch done. But yeah, there you go. So, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to be sitting down for a chat with Denver on V-Twin Life on March 27th.
So that's next Sunday, right?
Yep.
8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
Yeah, so it's
March
Mrs.
20th. Monkey
on the mile marker, whatever. It's Denver's. It's life in the V-Twin Life podcast. Denver's a hell of a good guy, and she'll be on. Just her. I ain't doing it. It's you. It's all the Mrs. Monkey show on Sunday the 27th, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So look for that. But any final thoughts, darling?
No.
All right. Take care of each other. We'll talk soon.